On today's show, we will talk about God's mercy and grace, and then later we will have Raisa Gray join us from our live recording. Recently, I started to think about how I am on waiting on God because of a few things that I've waited on out of pure want. We just had a crumble cookie and a Parlor Donuts open up in Altoona. The day Parlor Donuts opened, I waited for an hour to get one of those donuts. And this was after driving by 3 times and seeing the line out the door. Then the following week, crumble cookies opened. And once again, I waited almost an hour to get those cookies. And this time, I had to wait out in the cold, windy weather. But at no point was I frustrated by it because I just knew that I wanted those yummy goodies and that I was willing to wait. And I waited with expectation and excitement because, well, I love my sweets. Another time recently, I had to wait for an hour and a half on an airplane because we had had bad weather and the plane needed de-iced, and other planes were before us. I will admit at times this was frustrating because I wanted to get to where we were going, but mostly I wanted to get there safe, so I was pretty okay with what was needed to be done. So what's my point? Do I wait the same way on God? Do I go to Him with my needs, my prayer request, and when I want to see answers, do I wait? When I don't want to have to wait. But shouldn't I, in the waiting, have an expectation and an excitement for what's yet to come? Shouldn't I know if there's a wait, it's because He sees all and He understands it by keeping me safe or helping me to grow in my walk with Him? How I act during the waiting, it says a lot about my walk with Him. A cookie or a donut is so minimal in the large scheme of things. But what God is doing behind the scenes in the waiting, it matters. It matters so much. Waiting is never fun, but there's always something that we can learn and grow in. And our attitude, it matters during the waiting. So let's show those around us that as we wait for God's timing, we can do so with a joy and with peace. Romans 8:25 says, "But if we hope for what we do not yet have, we wait for it patiently." So Lord, help us to wait patiently with expectation for what you have for us. And we are just 3 ladies, all with big opinions, always backed by a biblical standpoint. So let's talk about it.
This segment is brought to you by Harry's Construction, whose motto is, "If you can dream it, we can create it." They are the kitchen and bath design experts, so call Harry's Construction for all your remodeling needs.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It. And ladies, we have, I think, a great question today that just to kind of understand the character of God more. Mm-hmm. And we're going to look at God's mercy and grace for us. And even a little bit, I would like to go into, are we able to give mercy and grace then to others? So what's your take, Arlene, on God's mercy and grace?
I think it is such a big thing,
right,
that it is impossible for us to know it.
Right.
What we have to do is believe it.
That's good.
And then we come into a knowing of it when we believe that we have it.
Yeah.
I just don't think I knew about His mercy. I had heard about it, but I didn't personally know it until I started believing it. And then it was like I saw it in my life more readily. I think, I came into a knowing of it. Yeah.
I think that's a great description
Yeah.
of you're not kind of born with understanding
No,
of it.
no. Yeah,
Got to dig in and
Yeah.
and know and believe it.
that's right. That's exactly right.
Because there's really nothing on earth
that we can compare it to.
that we can compare it to.
Nothing.
I think they were words that I used in my entire Christian life that I really never quite, like I used them, well, I wouldn't even say fragrantly, but just use them commonly. And it wasn't until, and I know I say this all the time, but it wasn't until the Bible recap that I fully wrapped my brain partially.
Right.
And she says, grace is getting what you don't deserve, and mercy is not getting what you deserve. And that kind of put it all into perspective for me.
And I have heard those things. I've heard preachers say them. I've probably even taught that. But I think we take for granted things, Christian phrases that we throw around.
Yeah.
We can take them for granted easily.
Right. But I thought right after she says that in her recap, she says, I hate the word deserve. Because the only thing we deserve is death. And I was like, whoa, but it is true. And when you can wrap your brain around that, then you definitely can understand mercy. And I thought too, because everybody that started reading the Bible over again in January, like we're in the heat of everything right now.
Yes.
And it's frustrating.
Yeah.
And it made me think throughout the entire Old Testament, God has shown his mercy and grace time and time and time again. So many times he's wanted to just,
Get rid of them completely.
Yeah.
Start over again.
but his love for humanity.
That's right.
We as humans would not be able to exist in his realm without grace and mercy.
Amen.
Yeah. I wrote on here, it's something that he gives over and over and over again, even when it's not deserved. How you, like, yeah, we
Yes.
don't deserve it, but he
Yes.
just, his love for us is so great. And again, that's, a topic we're going to be discussing on a later episode, but it's so hard to understand that love. And then because of the love, that mercy and that grace that he just so freely extends to us as we surrender to him. Like he wants to give us that.
He wants to. That's exactly right. He wants to just pour it on us, and we don't give anything freely, honestly.
No.
We don't. So we don't even know how in the world with us, when we do nothing for God, does he still freely give us those gifts?
Yeah, it's a really hard concept to kind of grasp at times, and that's why we need to be in the Word so that we understand the character of God and who he is, and we need to study Scripture, and we need to be in prayer with him so that he can download wisdom and knowledge into us to better understand that mercy and grace. So those are ways I feel like we can take hold of what it truly means to a point. We'll never totally grasp it, but at least to a point if we are studying the Scripture and praying.
Which is why it's important to do that, because look at the Israelites. They experience his mercy and grace from the very beginning, and how quickly they would forget it. And then he'd have to show it to them again.
Right.
And then they would forget it. And then he would show it to them again. And so I think that's really important, to just continue to be familiar with his character and stay in his word and speak to him, because we are the same humans today that they were back then, and
Exactly.
we will forget.
Exactly.
Sometimes I get so mad at them, and then I'm like,
Oh yeah. What idol? What idol have you set up today, Arlene? What?
Okay.
You're criticizing the Israelites, and you feel so much better than them,
Yeah.
and yet.
and yet you're the same.
We are the same.
We are the
same.
Very much are the
The
same.
exact same.
Yeah.
Because I look at that and I think, I have not had an opportunity to see a sea parted. But I'm telling you, if a sea parted and I walked through those walls of water, I would never forget who you are. Oh, but I would. Oh, but I would.
So here's a little bit of a turn on the question. How are you at receiving the mercy and grace?
Oh, receiving it from him?
Yeah.
Gosh, I don't even know.
No.
I am my own worst enemy. I am. I get in my head, and I think even times when it is obvious that God is showing me mercy and grace, and I can see it, I just think, oh, no, he can't mean that for me. You know, I want to downplay it maybe.
Or you think of all the people in
Yes.
the world, why is his beam on me right
Yeah.
now? Like, I'm not that significant in the grand scale of things, but we are.
Yeah. So sometimes, it's something he gives, but it's so hard for us to receive it.
Yes.
Because I think a lot of it has to do probably with upbringing and things that we've gone through. Then that makes it harder for us to understand it, harder for us to accept it, and to really receive it then. And how are we at giving mercy and grace?
See, that depends.
Honestly, it depends on my mood. It depends on the person. It depends
Yeah.
on so many things. And yet, none of that is how God is.
Right.
It doesn't depend on any of that for him to shower us with mercy and grace. He doesn't have moods. It's certainly not dependent on who he's giving it to.
Yeah.
Certainly.
Yeah.
Because clearly, my kids, I could give an abundant amount of mercy and grace to my kids, but I don't feel like I have that in me to give to that amount to everyone.
Absolutely.
But that's where he is so much greater than we are, and there's no prejudice with him.
None.
We're all the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great little thing to say about the kids, because I look and I can't think of anything that my kids would. Can I get frustrated with them? Sure. There's nothing that I wouldn't forgive or give mercy and grace to in the situation. But then other people, there's a limit. There's a limit to what I'm willing.
We do. We put limits.
Yeah.
Yes, we do. Yeah. Oh, I hate it when I do that.
Or that I have had about enough. Like,
Yeah.
I'm done with
Yes.
it. I'm done,
Yeah.
but he's never done.
Right. And we kind of have to go back to that at times when we are with people who are being people, to look back at ourselves and say, man, how many times has God been merciful with me? How many times has he shown me grace? Can I do it once again with these people? And maybe that's the mind shift that we need to kind of sometimes put forth in those moments, because people are people.
Yeah, but again, the only way we can learn it is being in his word. That you cannot learn it at church. You can hear about it, but you can't learn it there. It takes that individual time with God to be able to learn to have that for people.
Oh, yeah.
The
for
hardest
sure.
of people.
It's a heart thing.
Yes,
it's a heart thing.
It is a heart thing.
And it needs to be leaned into and grown.
Oh, yeah.
Because
Definitely.
it doesn't happen overnight.
Definitely.
Yeah.
But I just wanted to share a few verses as we end. Luke 6:36 says, be merciful, even as your Father is merciful. And then Matthew 5:7 says, blessed are the merciful, for they shall receive mercy. And then the last one they'll end with, Hebrews 4:16 says, let us then with confidence draw near to the throne of grace, that we may receive mercy and find grace to help in time of need. So these are just a few that show you the character of God and his grace and mercy. Get in that word so that you understand truly his grace and mercy on a better level. We had the opportunity to do a live recording, and when we come back, you are going to get to see that.
For generations, Dick's Home Care has been providing the best equipment and service for patient care at home. Breathe easier with oxygen from Dick's Home Care. Oxygen concentrators give you a continuous oxygen supply at home. Oxygen cylinders supply oxygen without power. And portable oxygen frees you to go. Dick's Home Care technicians will set your oxygen up and make sure you know how to use it. Call the leader in home medical equipment, Dick's Home Care.
Next time on Man Up, we're going to have Pat Irwin and talk about growing up with a legendary father.
For my work, I work at for Leonard S. Fiore. Leonard was my grandfather. We're in our third generation. Have the benefit of working around a lot of my family members. There's 7 or 8 of us in the business currently. We just celebrated our 70th year, and in construction.
All that and more next time on Man Up.
Welcome back to Let's Talk About It on a different stage than we're usually on, with mics in our hand, and it's a little different, but we're here going with the flow. And we have a beautiful guest with us today. Could you just share your name and a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Raisa Gray. I am married to Luke Gray, who's the son of Tammy and John Gray. We're pastors here at this church. My mom is also here with me, and I was born and raised in Brazil, and she's here with me today, and I'm very happy to have her and happy to be here.
That's awesome, because normally that wouldn't happen.
No
but we
way.
have a big audience getting to watch us on this live recording, so that's cool. But we brought you here because I think it's really cool to see people who are in the workplace that is secular, per se, but living the Christian life, walking that life, and just wanted to ask you a little bit what that's like. So, first of all, how did you get the position that you're in, and tell people your position?
Sure. So this year I am the acting principal of an elementary school here in Altoona called McAuliffe Heights. I got into education because I have 6 educators in my family. I have lots of aunts and uncles who come from that background. So education was always like a big part of my life. I remember as a little girl just playing with my cousins and playing school. School was always something I enjoyed. I really enjoyed just buying supplies, doing homework, all the things about school. Like I mentioned in my intro, I was born and raised in Brazil, so I experienced school in a very different setting. Throughout my elementary career, I attended private school. And when we moved to the United States, that was the first time that I experienced public school. And it's
Very different.
it was very different. And it was also beautiful because I was able to experience the transformative power of public education, which I hadn't seen in Brazil. In public education, I found mentors, I found role models, I found people that advocated for me and really that have played a role into what I'm doing now and kind of set me in the trajectory that I am now in too.
So, first of all,
Yeah.
you're pretty young to be a principal.
I
which
may
is
look
amazing.
young, I'm not that young.
But no, because this is going to show you my age, because when I was in school, every principal I ever had was an old guy, mean and threaten your life with a paddle with holes drilled in it. If I would have went to school and you were my principal, I would have just been like a little fashionista. I would have loved it. I would have loved it. So I feel like that happened for you really fast.
Yeah, so this is actually my 15th year in education. I've been in education for a long time. I went to school to become a phys ed teacher. And when my husband and I married, I was going to school in New Jersey. He was finishing his degree here at Penn State. And I got my first job at a very small project-based learning school in State College, Pennsylvania. And that was just a mindset shift for me, just because in my teaching prep, I was not used to project-based learning, and that was just a completely different way of teaching. So that was my first job, and I just felt like I've learned so much in there. I was a part-time teacher, part-time phys ed teacher at the time, and the co-founder of the school approached me a couple years in and asked, hey, I need an assistant in my room, and would you be willing to be a 7th and 8th grade teacher? And at the time, I really felt led to say yes and be obedient, and I said yes. And he said, well, you have to go back to school and get certified in other areas. So I think it's worth the investment. I really was hungry to learn more about project-based learning, and I felt I had this opportunity of this mentor that could mentor me. So I did. I took the position, which led me to have my own classroom years later. And I always had the desire to go back to school, but I did not want to take loans to go back to school. So I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And then in 2017, I had the opportunity to work with a Penn State professor who happened to be a judo teammate. I was in the judo team at Penn State, and he said, hey, I got a grant to get this humanoid robot to America from Japan. I need a classroom for this humanoid robot to live in. Would you be interested in doing research with me? And I said, yeah. I said yes, and I felt led to say yes, and I did. And that opportunity just opened the door to research and go back to school. He asked me, what's next for you? And I said, I've been praying about it, but I do have the desire to go back. At the time, I was pregnant with my daughter, and I really felt like it was time to shift. So I left the classroom, and I pursued my PhD in educational leadership full-time. That opportunity took me to Germany, where I was able to visit schools in Germany and meet educators from all over the world. And during my PhD journey, which is still happening, I'm still not done, I knew that I liked what I was doing, but it didn't make my heart sing. Like, I really missed the K-12 setting. And I talked to my advisor and I said, hey, is there anything that keeps me from getting my principalship in case I want to go back into the K-12 setting? He's like, there's nothing that keeps you. It's just going to be hard, and you're going to have to do double the work. I said, I'm willing to do double the work. Will Penn State pay for it? He said, yes. So I'm like, open door. Awesome. So I pursued the principalship, and around that same time, my husband and I, who we were living in State College at the time, really felt led to come to Altoona. I knew that Altoona was in my heart for a very long time. Even when I lived in New Jersey, I knew there was purpose here in Altoona. I didn't want to come to Altoona. However, that was just burning in my heart, and I knew I'm going to end up in Altoona. And I felt like I was swimming against the stream, saying no to Altoona. And I said, I really need to obey, and we need to move to Altoona. So we moved to Altoona, and I needed to pick a mentor in a school district to be able to do my internship, and I felt like it has to be Altoona. So at the end of my internship, this position opened, and that's how I ended up
You
here.
haven't been in this position very long, right?
So I was at the high school for 1.5 years as an intern, and then this position starting July of last year.
I kind of felt like this interview was supposed to be about something totally different, but as you're talking to me, I really feel like the whole demeanor of this interview is changing to more of like, around here, God gives big dreams.
Mm-hmm.
He honors big dreams.
Yes.
And you're just touching my heart with the fact that this was a big dream.
Mm-hmm.
And God showed up, and your big dream is there for you.
Mm-hmm.
And was almost seamless, Raisa, almost seamless.
Yeah, and I feel like the key is obedience, like obedience and pray. Pray, what is my purpose? And once you have that locked in, you just have to walk, walk the walk and trust. Everything didn't unfold in a day. It was like the school that I taught in for 10 years was a teacher-led school. We didn't have a principal. So we had to do all the work. We had to do the school organization work. I was able to see behind the scenes. Never thought of being a principal. That was never in my cards. Like, I never really had a desire to be a principal. That was never something I thought would happen. I knew I would see kids and my heart would be moved. I would cry sometimes just watching kids play, and I'm like, God, why am I crying? I knew that there was I needed to work with kids. I knew that I needed to be in that setting. So,
Elementary school age.
Yes, which is different for me. So in State College was a middle school age.
Yeah.
So we're talking 5th through 8th, and this is
So
definitely
now you have
different.
kindergarten through 5th.
I
so
do.
that's probably a lot at times, and it's different, I'm sure.
Yeah.
What has been some of the best things that you've seen since you've walked into this position?
I wake up every day with a desire I want to make kids feel seen, heard, and loved. That is my purpose and just seeing the return on that, you know, whether it's Reese saying, "Hi, Mrs. Gray," every single day, or other students waving or coming for a hug. That is truly the best part of the job.
You know, I love hearing that. We need Christian people in our education system to be a light and to be used how God wants you to be used. And so I really, really appreciate you sharing your story. And thank you for joining us on this different live episode.
You're welcome.
And when we come back, we will be in the studio again, and we will have your tip for the day.
Impact Productions, a multi-layer technology company providing on-site, online, and in-studio video services. Contact Impact Productions to capture your story.
Next time, we will talk about forgiveness, and then we will have Haley Parson join us to discuss her story.
I knew it was him though. I knew it was his voice, and I was like, oh Lord, okay. Okay. You know, I just said okay. And I said to my husband, I said, Dan, God told me to quit. And he instantly said, okay, do it.
Wow.
And so that was sort of confirmation that we were on the same page.
All that and more on Let's Talk About It.
Made by Vogel is a father and son business that produces high-quality handmade wooden products such as cutting boards, bowls, bottle stoppers, and more. Products for sale can be found on their Etsy site or in downtown Altoona at the Clay Cup. You can't go wrong buying from Made by Vogel.
Today's tip may seem silly to most, but since I talked about donuts and cookies earlier, I thought, why not share a favorite snack that many may not know about? These are called squashies, and they can only be found at Sheetz and Blair Candy. Now, Blair Candy has a few other flavors of squashies, but honestly, stick to the original because in my opinion, they are the only yummy ones. It's hard to really explain this candy, but it's somewhat like a marshmallow texture with a little sweet flavor to it. My oldest son had these sitting on our kitchen table one day, and I tried one, and I have been hooked ever since. I probably make a Sheetz run once a week for them. And when I recently went to Florida, knowing they would not be available there, I brought 3 bags with me. Seriously, you have to try these. They are that good. And if you do, let me know what you think. And until next time, let's talk about it.